I'm the famous Miss Amy June Furlong. Don't expect me to entertain you. I've more important things going on in my life than to tell you my stories. But now that you are here, make yourself comfortable and don't interrupt me. Everyone loves to hear my stories. They know I've seen life all right. They start questioning me everywhere I go. Theatre, restaurants, funerals. I become the centre of attention. Are you ready? I live in a 6-bedroom Georgian house with a beautiful dining room, a living room, 2 kitchens in the basement. I was born here and I want to die here. My grandparents came from Ireland, Belfast. My parents were married in Ireland. Granny and grandfather migrated to Liverpool, moved into a house in Marmaduke Street. They must have had money when they came, because they opened 2 shops, one in Mount Street and one in Scotland Road. That one was burnt down when they went home to Ireland for a holiday. They had 5 children when they moved to 58 Falkner Street. They moved because grandfather kept complaining the water was greasy in Marmaduke Street. Early one morning, when he went off to work as harbour master on the Liverpool docks, Granny went up to the attic to check on the water tank and found a dismembered body in the tank. She put a cover over it and moved out that same day. By the time he'd come home from work, she'd moved. Oh, I know what you're thinking. Did she tell anyone about the body? Well, no, I don't recall that she did. Well, it was like that then. Easy to move round. There've been lots of murders round here. I witnessed one, but I'll tell you about that next time. That cleaner's here today. She's downstairs. She bangs on the front door and I have to shout, "There are 58 stairs in this house. Give me time to get downstairs. I'm not Speedy Gonzales, you know." Oh, don't throw anything out. The sell-by date's gone on the kippers, but they're all right. They only use those dates so you buy more. It's a big con. That cleaner saved my life. She comes on a Friday and cleans the kitchen. I was on the floor for 13 hours all by myself the last time I fell. She called an ambulance. I was going to get rid of her before I fell because she has no culture. I gave her a magazine on art and told her to read it. I don't let her do much. In fact, I don't want people walking in and out of my beautiful house. I was born into this. I was born into the professional classes. I speak the international language of art. 25,000 pairs of eyes have looked at my body and have drawn me in the art schools. I don't want her giving me a shower looking at me with pity. The lowlife that come here have never seen a house like it. They put things in bin bags and hide them in the entry, and I'm paying for it. The council take the money out of my bank. I can't find my grey dressing gown anywhere, or Granny silver. They don't realise the stealing. They want to take a keepsake here or there. I tried to talk to her last week. Oh, she's as thick as 2 short blanks. I showed her the book about my life, and all she could say was, "Oh, you were a right one." You should have seen the look she gave me. She made me feel like Gladys stripping at the end of the bar of the Gladrake Club. I was that close to punching her in the face. Right. Let's get back on track. Today I'm going to talk about my London years. I will just tell you this first. The big fat thing. She rang me this morning. Calls herself a social worker. She sat over there last week telling me I need to be in a care home while she was menstruating all over the chaise longue. Miss Furlong, That blood stain is from where you fell and cut your head open, she said. Well, I know menstrual blood when I see it. She needs to lose a stone or two or she'll drop like a fly. They say I can't look after myself properly. They can't even do their jobs properly. The big fat thing went on holiday. And I was sitting here waiting to go into Granby for respite. And the ambulance didn't turn up because she forgot to fill in a form. Coronavirus test came back negative and I was sitting here for 3 days holding my handbag ready to go. Nobody turned up because nobody knew the result. They don't talk to each other. The doctors, nurses, carers, social workers. That's the problem. Now I need another test. I haven't got bloody coronavirus. I've lived through a war, TB, and all those sexy homosexual diseases. I know how to take care of myself. I am 90. You don't get skin like mine at 90 if you don't know how to look after yourself. Oh, this'll be her again to see if I'm dead. Hello? Hello? Oh, look, mate. I'm not interested, and you're going to hurt yourself doing that. If you want to give me a good time, then leave a bloody food parcel on my step. You can't do at 90 what you could do at 20. It's starting up again. I have to be careful. Every time I open my mouth about John Lennon, the headlines say, model posed nude for John Lennon. And the phone starts ringing at 5 in the morning or 11 at night. What time is it now? When we finish this, you can ring BT and tell them I'm not interested in sex. I don't want to get the police involved. Once you get them in your house, you can't get rid of them. Right. Focus, 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 focus. The London years. When I was 20, I hitchhiked to Paris with £20 in my pocket and lived off occasional modelling work. Oh, I was glamorous, all right. I had my picture in all the papers. It was only 3 years after the war. I was radical, beautiful and fearless. I became a nudist when I was 17, and I would sunbathe with my girlfriends in their gardens when their parents had gone out. We started off wearing white handkerchiefs down below, but we got brave and removed them, and oh, the feeling was fabulous. We'd follow on into the kitchen and cook a meal. It was freedom, and I loved it. Later we went on holidays, and we skinny dipping in Wales and in Europe. I worked in an advertising agency in central Liverpool when I left college. At the same time, I was asked to be a life model at the Liverpool School of Art. I was coming out of a phone box after putting my modelling photo and contact details on top of the telephone directory, and the artist and teacher, Don McKinley, was standing there, and he asked me to pose nude for the students at the art school. I walked into the life room a few days later and told him, well, I've come to work. I felt comfortable being nude, and being a naturist, I didn't have any white marks on my body. You can look good at 17 or 70 with or without clothes on. It's not what you wear, it's the way you hold yourself. Mother thought I was posing fully clothed. Oh, I left for London and the bright lights, and oh, it was a different world. My friend, Rex Macon, was going to see a client, so he gave me a lift. He was a very good, well-respected Liverpool solicitor, and he had a top-of-the-range, beautiful car. He dropped me off at the tube station, and I jumped on the first tube and asked the passengers, where is the Slade? They all pointed the other way. Oh. I must have had £5 in my pocket after my trip to France. It seemed perfectly natural to travel and to move round. I lived in Belsize Park and later in Hampstead. I needed to earn money to pay the rent. I was a big success at the Slade. The classes were always packed out, and I began to know the artists. John Bradby had just got a place at the Slade, but decided to change over to the Royal College of Art, as did Frank Auerbach. I got to know Ewan Uglow. He was a very hard-working student. I posed for everybody. Lucian Freud, Leon Kossoff, Sheila Fell, Carol Waite, Ruskin Spear, to name but a few. Peter Blake was also a student at the time. Jacob Epstein would spend hours talking to me at the Royal College of Art Sculpture Department, and Augustus John wrote to me personally requesting that I pose for him. I posed weekends for Ewan Uglow and a group of artists who paid me well and fed me. Oh, I loved my days at the Royal College and the Slade and all the big art schools. Lucian Freud, the famous Freud, he came in one day a week and, he was very quiet. Lucian Freud was honestly about the best dressed and the best looking bloke that I have ever seen in my life. He attracted women like flies around a jam pot, and I can tell you, and I am not exaggerating here, but I was there. And the life room, you know life rooms, it was about 3 times as big as where we're sitting now, and we had 3 models, and it was male students only for drawing, and I was one of the models. Now, if you wait a minute, I will tell you why there were only males in that life room. The ladies had their own room, and then they had a communal room. They had 3 rooms at the Slade. We had 3 rooms for drawing here in Liverpool, you know. We had 3 rooms for drawing. It was part of your course. If you didn't pass our life drawing, you didn't get on the degree course. It was as simple as that. Lucian Freud came in one day a week. He never seemed to walk in the middle of the room. He would always walk around the edges. I noticed him, but there were a lot of other people there at the time. This other model, who was a friend of mine, was called Iris Martin. She was crazy about Lucian Freud. Now, it came to Valentine's Day, February, and I'd started there in September, okay. Now, I was living in Earl's Court, and I don't like Earl's Court, so when I finished each day, as I did not know the area, I would just walk up the street and get my train back to Earl's Court, and the people in the house were a lot of fun. Well, 1 or 2 had come down to get a husband, you know. Oh, they came down from all different places. I used to knock door to door to see if people wanted a model. I would pose for the husband while the wife was with the children. I also posed for high-class people in the embassies in London and was featured as a pin-up in a prestigious magazine. Iris. I knew Iris then, but we didn't share a place together then. Iris was living with some relatives miles out in the suburbs. We moved into Hampstead together, which was at the top of the main road, and there's the train station, and there is our flat, which was very nice. So, it came round Valentine's Day. It was a job to make a card for Lucian. Everybody was involved with it. Somebody wrote the verse, somebody did a picture. I think it was Iris looking up and Lucian was looking down, and it was my job to get an envelope. I thought, where am I going to get an envelope for this Valentine? We left this Valentine card by the book. In the Slade, everybody from the principal downwards had to sign it. There was nothing left to chance there. And Lucian had this card and everyone was almost bursting out laughing. And come lunchtime, we'd walk over this big courtyard, and there was the refectory, like the canteen you might call it. Well, we'd have a cup of tea, and Lucian would go in there sometimes. Iris and myself went in, and Lucian came down and sat down at the table. And Iris was petrified because she was in the company of the great Lucian Freud. She looked at me, and I had to break the ice. I said, "Did you get your Valentine, Lucian?" Lucian said, "My dear girl, it is the biggest envelope I have ever seen in my life." Oh, we got on very well together after that. He thought I'd sent it. Oh. We had afternoon tea together. Tea and a cake. I said to Iris, "This is going to end right here, mate. You are going to have to ask him to come for a meal. Ask him round." Iris plucked up enough courage and said to him, "Would you like to come to Hampstead for a meal?" And he said, "Yes, I would like that. I paint so slowly that I've got to get into my studio for 8:30 in the morning, and I don't come out until 6 when the light has gone." Iris said, "OK," and we gave him the address, and he went on his way, and Iris and I went on our way back to the classes. Of course, as soon as we got back, Iris is saying, "Oh, what are we going to give him to eat? And we haven't got any decent knives and forks. And what about the place and this and that and the other?" So I had to dig deep into my pocket, and I got some food going. We had an attic which was very nice. Her bed was over here. My bed was over there. It was bigger than this room where we are now. The next thing, I was looking at the time thinking, well, is he going to show up? And then I heard a big argument in fluent French. The man downstairs, Mr. Morrow, worked for a gallery or a museum. What had happened? When Lucian came, he didn't know where we were in this building. Oh, it was a nice building. Well, Lucian had rang the wrong bell. He rang Mr. Morrow's bell, who went off his bloody head. He didn't realise it was the great Lucian Freud who'd arrived. They were both fluent in French and were arguing in French. I said to Iris, "I think your guest has arrived." We put some food on the table, and he came up and he ate it all. And he still thought it was me who had the romantic interest in him. Then he went on his way. Lucian was married to Jacob Epstein's daughter, and he had a little boy, but I didn't know that, you see. I had no romantic interest in Lucian. I found him very interesting. And like I say, he was the best dressed bloke I've ever seen in my life. And he was extremely good looking, even close to. He knew about all of the clubs. Oh, we could get in anywhere. He was a friend of Francis Bacon. And I remember sitting on the Underground in London Euston Station, where you got out to Soho and the clubs. Some rough guys got in like heavy workmen, and Lucian was sitting there in black watch trousers, Scottish stuff, and this green jacket, perfectly matching everything. And they came in, and they looked at him. Iris was sitting one side of him, and I was sitting the other. And these guys said, "Oh, look at this fella. Look at the way he's dressed." Oh, the faces were as hard as leather. Lucian heard that. And such was his charm, and the fact he could speak to anybody in their own language. The next thing, he invites them all over. "What do you do? What's your job?" they asked him. "I'm an artist," he said. "As a matter of fact, I have got an exhibition on at the moment." These workmen were fascinated with him, and the whole lot of us got on the train together. Lucian drove a Rolls Royce, and he said to me, "I only get on here to see if they've got any new posters and adverts up." When these guys got off before we did, they were all waving to us, and Lucian got up, leaned out of the window, gave them a card and said, "Here's my invitation to my exhibition." They all turned up. They were all cleaned up. I don't think they'd ever been to an exhibition in their life. At the exhibition, Lucian was talking to royalty, with Prince Charles, I seem to remember. And he said, "Excuse me, I've got some friends who've just arrived." But Lucian went over and asked them if they would like a drink. He said, "It's only wine." Oh, well, it was the finest wine. "It's only wine. I haven't got anything else." And they were all looking at the paintings and saying to Lucian, "Did you do that all by yourself?" Oh, Lucian had amazing looks, amazing charm. And of course his brother was on the television doing cooking, which Lucian didn't think he knew anything about. He didn't think he was a master chef or anything like that. He was very embarrassed by his brother Clement. Oh, he was on the television a lot. Lucian used to go round the clubs. But if he was recognised and the music wasn't good, he'd say, "Oh, come on, June, I know better clubs than this." And of course, I got to know all of the Soho district, and some of the clubs were very good. We socialised with Francis Bacon and all the film stars and film producers in the Soho jazz clubs. We call them the sing-song joints. The Mazzini brothers had established themselves in Soho. Ooh, they were evil. They were the gang before the craze. One day, a large mystery box of £5 notes was sent to me as a gift. I don't know who it was from, but I put the money in the bank. Oh. Lucian only taught at the Slade one day a week. I think it was either a Friday or a Monday. He said to me, "This is my day of rest. I paint so slowly I've got to be in the studio all day, every day, from early morning until the light has gone." He lived in Kensington. I never went to his studio at all. I remember I was going to something at the Royal College of Art. Smashing dances they had there, and marvellous food, oh, marvellous lunches. Lucian came along in his car and he said, "June, look at Bula." Bula taught at the Royal College. I was in the Royal College then because the models told me they paid better than in the Royal College South Ken, so they snapped me up straight away. But of course I had to get from Hampstead to South Kensington. It was cheaper to get to the Slade. It was only a couple of stops. Lucian said to me, "Look at Robert Bula." Bula drank a hell of a lot. I don't know how he saw the sitter, never mind the canvas. And Lucian said, "Well, we can't leave him there." Lucian hated anything that was not A1 in public. You would never see Lucian badly dressed or drunk or making a fool of himself in public. No, 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 no. And he said, "You grab one arm and I'll grab the other." Robert Bula lived around the corner from Exhibition Road. And we got him up the steps, got him into the house. I looked round and Lucian had vanished completely. No sign of Lucian whatsoever. I was left to get Robert Bula, who was a teacher at the London College it was then. I mean, it was before we had royal status. Well, that's another funny story. "You take one arm and I'll take the other." Oh, aye. Bula had fantastic Epstein sculptures everywhere, all different sizes. If I was a knockoff, I could have had an Epstein sculpture here, you know. Well, I got Bula into his bed, and I thought, I don't think he's fit to be left alone all night if he got out of bed and cracked his head. So I sat in a chair sitting like this most of the night. Suddenly, he woke up and he was perfectly all right, and he looked at me. I think he knew my name was June, as he knew I was a model at the Royal College where he was a teacher. And he said to me, "June, do you like strawberries?" I said, "Yeah, I do." It was out of season. And he went to the fridge and he gave me about £2 of strawberries out of season. And then we had breakfast in a place called Daki's, which still there to this day. It's a Polish place right near South Kent Station where I went to get home. We had breakfast and then he went on his way. Of course, when I got back to Hampstead, I knew a lot of artists there, and I worked weekends, and I told you the story about Ellis, who was the last woman in England to be hanged, and the artist who was shot in the hand and came running to the studio. Well, I had all of these strawberries, and we all sat on the heath eating these strawberries, and they said to me, Lillian and Donald Fisher. Donald was later a designer on television. They said to me, "When are you going back there again?" I said, I am not going back there again. I don't think Lucian ever painted me, but when I was working, he would do drawings of me in a little book. He was teaching. He would put the book in the inside pocket of his jacket. Whether he did them when he got back to the studio, I do not know. Mother came to see me in London. She didn't understand my way of life, and she said, "They want you back in Liverpool, and they've always been decent to you, June." I took her to lunch at the Royal College and then to Soho in the evening. A man walked up to her and made a proposition. Well, she saw the funny side of it, though. Frank Auerbach never painted me. I begged him to once. I went down to London for the weekend and he said he just couldn't do it. It takes him years to do a painting. I imagined a painting of me would be in the Tate. I said something like, "Well, just use polyfiller, Frank. Just build it up and paint over the top." Well, that didn't go down well. He took me to the train station and put me on a train. Never spoke to me again. I regret that to this day. The life I've led. These people who come here do not have the social standing I had. My so-called friend took my coat away to wash it. She said it needed cleaning and she wanted to take me out to lunch. Bloody cheek. She's a mystery. I've known her for 20 years and I have never been invited into her house. I think her and her fella are in the secret police. Either that or she's a prostitute. That's where they all lived, in the square. What does she do for a living? I don't ask. Mother used to say, "If you don't ask June, you'll get told no lies." I know her type. She's waiting for the next big thing to come along. It's too late. She missed the boat. The age of her. She's a nymphomaniac. She'd be an alcoholic if she only had the money. She came in here and told me to go into the care home and to see sense. See sense, I said. And while we're on the subject of seeing sense, you are nothing but a whore, and your fella will never leave his wife for you. Now look in the mirror. Heck off, she said. If I could have reached for the candlestick, she would have had that right across her head. Arty farty, she called me. These people who are not in the art world do not understand what it's like, how hard we work. I've a walk-in cupboard in my bedroom. I call it my own personal life. I've kept all the letters from men who wanted to marry me. Cards, photographs, newspaper clippings, everything people have sent me over the years. Mother always told me to wait until the next big thing came along. Wait for someone better, someone with money. I keep my life in boxes and in bags. I'm not going to share them with anybody. I imagine when I die, people will sweep through the house and remove everything. Don't let them take my personal life away. Keep hold of it.
Any day. Once you get down Lambeth Way, you'll find them all doing the Lambeth Ball. Everything bright and breezy, do as you damn well pleasy. Why don't you make your way there? Go there, stay there, and then chorus again. And he taught them all that. And